Hi, IWF. We're here today with Stephanie Sylvestre. Stephanie, tell us about your professional journey.
First of all, thank you for having me here. I'm super excited when I saw this come out. I was like, oh yeah, I get to know a little bit more about each of the members on their own terms, and I like love to learn about people on their own terms. So my professional journey is actually a little unorthodox because I have a master's in international studies and economic development, and I really thought that that's what I was going to spend my life doing. And when I graduated from I was in Miami. I didn't necessarily want to leave, and I couldn't speak
Well,
Spanish
let's back
well.
up a little bit. I've said professional journey, so let's go a little bit further. Where are you from? How did you get here?
Okay, sure. Okay, so I'm originally from Belize, and I came to the U.S. to go to college with the intention of going back to Belize. And so I went to University of Southern California in LA, and 2 months before I was supposed to go back to Belize, there was an election, and the party my dad aligned with lost. So my job at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and everything that went along with it disappeared. So I moved to Miami to go to grad school. And if you happen to have moved to Miami in the 1990s and happen to be in your 20s, waiting for elections to happen, you kind of get sucked into Miami. And when there was a second election and the party my dad aligned with won, I was like, no, necessarily want to go back to Belize. I'm having too much fun living in Miami. So the compromise was I was honorary consul of Belize in Miami, and actually my jurisdiction was the southeastern United States. And so for 9 years, I was honorary consul of Belize. That was lots of fun, including the fact that most people mistook me for the honorary consul's child. So that was always an entertaining prospect. I think I'm finally at the age where typical honorary consuls get selected.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, that's fascinating. So now go back. So then you were studying at the University of Miami, getting your master's. And aside from being honorary consul, what happened?
So while I was at UM, and so I graduated, and my dad's party was still out of power, and so I got a job and I started working. And my first job was at Hewlett Packard, and I met this guy who was one of the original coders of Unix. And Unix is the operating system that runs all computers. And he was bored because Unix is probably the most robust operating system you're ever going to encounter. And so he didn't really have a lot to do. And I'm always open to learning new things. So he taught me everything there is to know about computers in a way that was amazing. And so when I left there, I started my career as a consultant in a boutique IT shop. And then from there, I evolved to working in different corporate environments. I worked at Wachovia. I worked at Burger King. I worked at the purchasing cooperative for Subway. And then I got recruited to go work at the Children's Trust. So it's always funny because people like to pigeonhole me as a nonprofit expert. And I have 1 year of work experience when I was on a sabbatical running a nonprofit. Other than that, I have all corporate background. Um, and so that's kind of my work experience. And now I'm working in AI. So how to use AI to help scale companies without adding headcount, and how to help marginalized people amplify themselves and increase their self-agency.
So tell us how you're doing that now. What is your platform for doing that? You have your own shop?
Yes, I have my own AI company, Avatar Buddy. And I will say that we make generative AI simple to use. We take all the tech out of it. We've simplified the concept of creating a small language model. We made it as simple as uploading a file to Google Drive. We've simplified prompt engineering as simple as selecting an option on a dropdown. That's it.
And so give us an example of who your clients would be and what kind of job you would do for them?
So our typical clients are mid-market companies. And let's say a mid-market company wants to grow their sales. They have a sales team, and there's a mix of legacy people and new people, and they're struggling with some of the new technology that they've brought in. So we would help the sales team, one, maximize the tech stack that they have. So how do you use Salesforce? How do you use HubSpot? Whatever it is that they're using to do their sales. Secondly, we would help the sales team understand the product mix. So depending on what you're selling, product mix can get very complicated very quickly. And so the AI, if you give it all the product, a list of all the products, it will help you determine an appropriate product mix for your customer based on just a simple description of your customer. Natural language, just like how you and I are talking right now, you talk to the AI, gives you a product mix, and then helping to qualify your lead. So a lot of times salespeople spend a lot of their energy trying to figure out if this person is the right person. And so we are able to come up with a rubric, and by asking a series of questions, we can make a determination of whether or not this lead is valid. And if it's not valid, then, move on to the other. And what we do is, if we have a customer that we imply the same concept as well. And if we have a customer and we think that it's not a right fit for us, we'll say, here's an AI company that can help you. So just kind of like passing it along. Our mission is to get everybody into the Gen AI space as possible.
Great. Well, that's fascinating work. And you actually have a very interesting journey. Tell us, is there a significant professional accomplishment that you are particularly proud of?
Well, I have a few. I think the one that really, really, really like still gives me goosebumps about it was when I worked at IPC, which is a purchasing cooperative for Subway. One day my boss and I are in an elevator, and he's like, "Stephanie, do you have enough work to do?" And walks off the elevator. And I was like, "What?" And so I'm stressing for 3 days. I finally run into him again. And I was like, "What do you mean by, do I have enough work to do?" And he's like, "Oh, because I have an assistant for you if you want one." And nobody else has had an assistant. So I was like, "Okay, fine. I'll have an assistant. I don't know what I'm going to do with him." So he gives me this assistant. And I think I'm like, he's a little off. But anyway, I'm like, whatever. I'm not going to be judging, because people say I'm a little bit off. So I'm not going to be judging anybody. And so I'm working with him, and I'm training him, and I'm getting him up to speed. And, every 2 weeks we do leadership development, where we're turning him into a leader. And two things happened that like totally blew my mind. One is, I'm in a meeting, and there's one of my colleagues wants me to do something, and I say, "I'm not going to do it." And he goes, "That's okay. I'm going to go ask this young man who worked for me." Nobody knew he worked for me. I could have said no. But the fact that he thought that he could end around me and go use him was a testament that he had developed into the type of employee that I wanted him. And so then, we're there. Fast forward, we're like 9-10 months into him working with me, and his dad wants to go to lunch with me. And I'm like, okay, it's kind of strange that his dad wants to go to lunch with me, but whatever. I'm like always game for random things. So I go to lunch with him and his dad. And during the course of the lunch, his dad starts crying. And he said, when he was 3 years old, he had meningitis and he lost a third of his brain. And he has struggled with holding down a job and really coming into his own. And he had been able to hold down a job. Working with me has been the longest he had held any job. So I left the company, and he was still there. Then he went on to another job. And in fall of 2022, when I was just kind of feeling a little weird, he sends me a text, and he tells me about how he's implementing all of my leadership development that I had trained him on in his new company, and how he had gotten this other person to see and start rowing in the same direction as the rest of the team. And for me, like that for me is still my best accomplishment ever, because I took somebody I thought he's a little weird, but I didn't let my initial adjustment color my engage in him. I held him accountable. I had expectations of him, and he rose to the challenge. And what that does is like it proved out my theory that I've always had, that if you have expectations for people and you hold them accountable, they will exceed your expectations. And that's what I've continued to do for my entire life. And that's what we're trying to do with the AI product. We're saying, look, we have expectations of you. You can rise to a new level. You need some remedial support. And if you're not lucky to have a leader like me that's going to take the time to coach and mentor you, here's the AI that's going to help you coach and mentor and get you to new levels.
Oh, wow. What a great story. And it's a perfect segue. So let's go the other way. That was you mentoring. Did you have a mentor that had a particular impact on you? And what's the best advice you've ever received?
Well, my best mentor is Tony Randolph, and she hates when I like celebrate her, but I am going to celebrate her because everybody in IWF knows how amazing and awesome Tony is. And so Tony and I have a very funny story as well. So I'm at United Way on the Impact Council, and Tony's new to Miami, and she's on the Impact Council, and we're arguing about funding. And there was this childcare center in Coconut Grove that I absolutely believe needed to get funded, and we were not going to fund them. And I just kind of like stopped the meeting and just said, we are not going to make these final decisions until you hear me out and why we should fund this nonprofit. And Tony said that she had never been in a meeting where somebody just hijacked the meeting and just said, we are not going to move on until you listen to me. And so she wrote a little note and said, hey, do you want to have lunch? And it signs Tony. And I'm like, okay, who's Tony? No idea who this person is. So I call and I make arrangements to go to lunch, but I'm still not sure who I'm talking to. And so I'm like, okay, well, I have to be 5 minutes late to lunch. That way, when I get to the person will see me there, wave me over, and I have a few minutes to compose myself. And since then, Tony has been opening doors for me and giving me access to rooms that I wouldn't otherwise get access to, and holding my hand for as long as I need my hand held till I can command the room. And so that's my my Tony story, and just an amazing mentor. And she's always telling me about the amazing things that that I can do. And she's like, yeah, Stephanie, yeah, you're gonna have a $2 billion company. You just have to keep at it. And you know, to have somebody believe in you like that is just amazing. And sometimes just having somebody believe in you is more important than having a bank account with a lot of zeros, or just having all the other things. Just the fact that somebody that doesn't need to believe in you can believe in you and say, yes, you can rise up and you can accomplish, is amazing. The best advice I ever got was, sometimes we dream too big. And it's a good advice, because I was so pissed off when somebody told me that. It gives me fuel. And every time I get tired and weary on my journey, I remember this advice about sometimes I dream too big. And that just fires me up, because now I have to prove that I don't dream too big.
That's a good one. Well, and you're not the first person to name Tony as their mentor. So big shout out to Tony, who has mentored so many. You know, you mentioned the United Way Impact Council. How are you connecting with the community now outside of your profession?
Well, I'm taking a break from investing in the community because I need to invest in Avatar Buddy. But prior to investing 100% in Avatar Buddy, I was at the Children's Trust, and I was in charge of programs and also of IT. And so I spent a lot of my time as chief programs officer just working with nonprofits and helping them just become really stable. And there's this one nonprofit that when I first started at the Children's Trust, I said to them, I said to the CEO, I said, look, if you're a business, you would be out of business. You have one major funder that's 90% of your funding. That is not a viable, solid way forward. And he said that nobody had been this blunt to him before, and it shocked him into reality. And I will say, so it's been 10 years later, he now has, I think it's like a 17-18 million dollar organization, and the Children's Trust is less than 15% of his funding. And so I did that on varying degrees of success. And that was my give back during the Children's Trust, just working and supporting the people leading the nonprofits. And then before the Children's Trust, I had an effort, and my friend Didi Eisenberg, who again is another amazing mentor and believes in me like crazy. She has saved all of my crazy ideas. She has a Stephanie folder, and she just keeps putting stuff in there. When I send her stuff, she prints it out and she puts it in her Stephanie folder. And she and I spearheaded and convinced 2,100 women that they should brave the Miami heat. And we built 7 homes throughout Liberty City with only women volunteers for Habitat for Humanity, including one that we built in 2 weeks. So Women's Bill Blitz. I will not advise anybody else to do that. That was the height of crazy. I mean, I was like, oh my God, this is absolutely insane. And I still had a full-time job that I had to deal with while we were doing that. But yeah. And then before that, United Way Impact Council Board on Communities and Schools. I was the chair of BK Cures when I worked at Burger King. In March of Dimes when I was at Hewlett Packard, and got people to come out and build for Habitat and so forth. So always believe in giving back to the community. It's a privilege to be in a position where you have enough that you give back. And so just kind of leaning into that privilege.
Agreed. What are you learning about now?
What am I learning about now? AI is going so fast. I can barely keep up. And I think that any AI person that you talk to, that's what they're saying. So I'm learning about AI, and I'm learning about how to mash up AI with actual, real, tangible use, not just to figure out how to sell more product that we don't need, but how do you really use AI to help people develop their self-agency? So when I started out, it was like self-worth and self-esteem, but I always felt like that was incomplete, and I finally got the word, which is agency. Imagine having something that is there with you 24/7, that just amplifies your awesomeness and helps you manage your weakness and helps you regulate your emotions. And so learning about that, and now I'm learning about hardware and chips that can be implanted in the human body. So that's my next frontier. That's what I spend my time. I'm like literally just learning about AI, how to use it, how to implement it, how to innovate with it. Just continually learning about that.
And coming up soon, how to implant it, I guess.
Yes, yes. The human body is a machine, and just like how we gave cars chips, and now they're so much safer to drive than before. What if we gave the human body a chip? what other awesomeness we can unlock there. Something to think about.
Yeah. Okay, so I have some fun questions to finish
Okay.
up. What is a fact about you we would not find on the internet?
I thought about that and I was like, I don't know. I think the thing that you wouldn't find on the internet is when I was like a little kid, there was this thing called National Festival of Arts competition that they would have in the country of Belize, and all the school age kids would compete. And so I can crochet so well that I won those championships quite a number of times.
So you're a championship crocheter.
Yes, I don't think you'll find that on the internet.
Nope, I didn't find it. What book, podcast, or television show are you recommending now?
Um, so the two books that I would recommend, one is How to Buy Back Your Time, and I am blanking on the author. I just read it. It's very simple. I've implemented a bunch of the things that he recommended, and that has been catalytic in terms of just making sure that Avatar Buddy just doesn't consume me so much that I don't have time for fun things like talking to you.
Yeah.
And I've attended all of the IWF events. And then the book that I just read last week is Gap Selling. And we have been refining how we work on doing another pivot in preparation for a relaunch. And Gap Selling has been like, for me, I was like, oh my God, where was this book been? Like in the last 8 years of dealing with Avatar Buddy, implementing the stuff in there, the guidance have been amazing. And I'm already seeing some positive impact from doing that. So those are the two books. I'm not a big podcast person, but definitely I'm a big reader.
What does the term gap selling mean?
So the whole concept is most of the time we're just trying to get people to buy stuff. And what if we were to sell from the perspective of helping to solve a problem? So in between the problem that you have and your desired future state, your current state and your future state, there's a problem. And what if we could solve that problem? Then we would be able to, we can sell. If I say to you, Melanie, what keeps you up at night? And you tell me what keeps you up at night, and I say, what if I could give you like a legal assistant buddy that could help you with your research? And you're like, what? And it will cut down the cost of doing legal research. And it's not going to replace you doing research, but it's you have all the documents and you just having to verify and validate all of that. Wouldn't that be something you'd be interested in? And so going to that perspective, selling that way has been so much easier.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, what's the most exciting or memorable adventure you've had outside of your career?
I think so this is like probably it's borderline irresponsible, but and so I do not recommend that any 20-something-year-old do this or teenager does this. But when I was going to USC, I read, and as part of our program, they would take us to different parts of Spain, and we were in Salamanca one night, and I just was like, I'm kind of like bored with what they're doing. So I just kind of wandered off and I went to this submarine bar and I met up with these bunch of these Spaniards who were very fascinated with the fact that I did not look like an American. But I also didn't look like the Africans they were used to seeing. And so they were like, what are you? And so in my broken Spanish, we were talking, and then I convinced this guy to let me borrow his car, and we were driving around the streets of Salamanca at 3 o'clock in the morning, just like having a great time because he had I think he had a sports car. I don't remember what car it was. And it was a stick shift. And he also did not believe that I could drive a stick shift, which, by the way, I love stick shifts. My current car right now is still a stick shift.
That's a good story. Okay, last song or last question. If you were in charge of the playlist, what song would play next?
Uh, All Is Yours is my favorite Caribbean soca song. It's the soca song. The other one that I love is Born With It by Alison Hine. That one is a little bit more recent. But I'm not a big music person, but those would be the songs that would be on my playlist, which is like pretty much what's on my playlist right now.
Okay, well, thanks for doing the interview. It was such a great catching up, and hopefully I'll see you soon. We have our annual meeting in September.
Yes, it's locked in on my calendar. I can't wait. And thank you for selecting me. I'm super excited to be able to share. This is amazing. So thank you.
Yeah, good luck with everything.
Thanks.